So even if they ended up winning, the thought in my mind was, what's next? Because obviously the whole concept of reinforcements was introduced. So are they just going to get real anime lucky? The reinforcements come, they pop a few potions, they go to the lower floors, Belle and everyone sing in a circle, they hold hands, everything's good? Highly doubt it. This season of DanMachi has been very brutal. So here's the thing. If you force the characters between a decision of going to the surface and losing Belle potentially for good, and going to the lower floors without being healed up, there's not really an easy answer. And when you get forced to the lower floors as your only chance of survival, even say they meet up with Belle, even say everyone up until that point stays alive. It's not like they have enough recovery items to pop everyone back to 100%. It's not like things are going to get easier. And something I've been saying over the course of this twin-headed fight was, even if you beat that floor boss, it's not going to be the worst thing they're going to experience. It is going to get worse before it gets better. And the only silver lining to this whole episode is Cassandra was finally believed. This is a poor girl who's similar to, she's literally based off of Greek mythology's Cassandra, who was forced to have these predictions that turned out true, but unfortunately was never believed. She was cursed in that way, and the exact same way with our Cassandra, she's never believed. Unfortunately, the way to save you was to listen to her and go down deeper, but now your escape route is now cut off, and also you're going to have to probably fight way worse than what you just did. It is not a good time to be a DanMachi character if you're connected to Belle, but it is an amazing time to be an anime fan of DanMachi because we are experiencing some very fun things. Now, I do have a full live reaction to today's episode available on my Patreon if you're interested, so support that if you do want to see it, but let's talk about this because this was a great finale to this fight, right? We get a little bit of Belle, but for the most part, it's all directed on the dragon fight. And that dragon fight was awesome. Like, they made it helpless. They then, the next episode, made it feel like they were about to win. And then it just kind of felt like both sides were on their final hurrah. I thought it was interesting that this creature actually would then dive underwater because it recognizes it's been through a few slashes, and honestly, one wrong move, any of these characters could end up dead. But when you have hardly any ground to walk on, people are beyond pissed off. They're literally thinking they've seen someone get gnawed and consumed by fish down below, someone got blasted by fire. They're just swinging their sword without much thought behind any tactical warfare. The concept of Haruhime surviving and even our girl not being killed down below, if anything, Haruhime had probably the biggest shield protecting her, but it was still an effective cliffhanger because from these characters' point of views, they were looking at people they love get killed before their eyes. And even if you end up surviving this battle, like I said, every character does have a death flag. At any moment, any one of these characters could end up consumed by one of the beasts below. So the fact that you just see them freaking out, it's one of those things where you have to wonder, does our girl have just a really good lung capacity? Or is anime time just not really correlated with our time? Because the episode kicks off with her drowning and basically being consumed, and then honestly it felt like 10 minutes go by and you still see her just slowly sinking. But that's anime, right? Stuff like that always happens. But it was interesting because the way they went about defeating this creature I thought was very clever, right? We have basically one shot at destroying both heads. And I'm still making the jokes throughout these episodes being like, what if they cut both heads off? And the reason it has two heads is because once you kill one head, another head grows. So what if they cut two heads off and then it becomes three and they just decide to know better there? Because what else would you be able to do in those circumstances? But no, they do end up defeating it by basically having this gravitational pull, which basically forces it to stop moving around. We have one slash, nice clean slash that honestly our boy, he was basically going on a suicide mission and took out a head. And then of course with Aisha doing her final hurrah after getting buffed by Haruhime, they end up defeating it. And they even managed to have some fun jokes like, ooh, we get this liver. And honestly, I'm not sure if she even has that after because they end up running shortly after that moment and she does look like she dropped it. If they ended up defeating that floor boss and got nothing for it other than their lives, while yes, you could consider yourself lucky all things considered, I would also find that to be disappointing if they all end up getting out of there and all they have to show for it is, whatever damage isn't irreversible. But I thought it was nice to see how they ultimately kind of regroup because it didn't feel like this victory was them making this master plan and feeling like they didn't have a chance of living. It was more so, it was like, here's our rage, here's all our emotions, and they were freaking out. They were charging in without much of a plan. And once that gravitational pull came in, that was the moment that gave them a chance to actually live rather than just charge towards their death. The Cassandra stuff was hands down my favorite part of this episode. Now, I've seen a lot of, let's put it nicely, some mean comments towards Cassandra. And I get it, maybe not everyone's as familiar with Greek mythology and the Cassandra in that story, right? But I think the show's done a pretty good job at showing that Cassandra in this show isn't belief. So someone who has these vivid nightmares that she is convinced are true and are going to happen to all of her friends and loved ones, and every time she brings it up, no one listens to her. Yeah, she's maybe going to feel a little useless on the battlefield because she's seeing everything that she's haunted by coming true, and when she thinks it's not coming true, and she starts believing in them saying, well, maybe I am just a crazy girl, it then all falls apart. And in this episode, she puts her foot down. And we even see after she puts her foot down, no one's listening to her. They think it's not the time for some crazy girl's delusions. She's literally cursed to never be believed. And I thought it was brilliant how they directed her because I think she's had a great character arc since, honestly, the past season or so. But a lot of people are just thinking she's useless. But that's like literally the point. She feels useless because she's literally cursed to not be believed. And the moment where she finally does get accepted, like, listen, I mean, that moment where the giant ice crystal falls and she doesn't move, I thought that was so badass. Like, that was some big D energy right there, being like, listen, I can see things before they happen, you have to believe me. But when you look at it from the character's point of view, not an anime watcher who may have knowledge of Cassandra from Greek mythology, we have two options: go into the deepest pits of hell or run to the surface and try to survive. Most people are going to try to run to the surface. Yes, hindsight can always be 20/20, and they recognize had they done just that, they probably all would have ended up dead, similar to the people ending up falling, which I thought was a little comedy gold there in the middle of a life or death moment. But I like what they did in this because it really let Cassandra say, listen, this is how it needs to be. We are going to not live if you don't listen to me. I misread the prophecy. I don't understand it fully, but east is the direction we need to go. And I love the fact that, this is the first of many moments that are slowly probably going to build the trust of her. But here's the thing, right? Imagining if they all start putting her trust in Cassandra, she doesn't know the full prophecy. She doesn't know how to decipher it fully. So if she leads them in the wrong direction, that will then immediately reverse any goodwill of them believing that she can tell the future. It's a curse, right? Being able to predict the worst case future ever and trying to avoid it, but feeling like everything just continues to happen in the way that it is. I mean, it's no wonder the girl sometimes stands on the battlefield petrified and not knowing what to do. Luckily, she's not their ace fighter, so other characters can end up buffing and doing these crazy things. The biggest, ability that she has is if she can decipher warnings and figure out ways to avoid these catastrophic events, she will be their biggest shield. But when you have no one believe you, it's kind of understandable why she kind of gets a little stone-faced and just stands there not knowing what to do. And I think this episode was a great moment for her that really, hopefully, will highlight to the viewers who maybe even aren't even as familiar with Greek mythology as some others might be. This episode should relay the information that she isn't believed, and it's no wonder she sometimes stands around feeling useless because she doesn't know, am I crazy or are people just not listening to me? How am I supposed to get through to them? Especially when everyone's making life or death decisions in the blink of an eye, right? But I mean, it was an incredible episode. I think the floor boss was engaging, exhilarating, Bell stuff, while very quick. I mean, it does reinforce that they ain't getting healed unless they find a magical hot springs that's going to relieve all their wounds and tension, but it feels like these characters, in the condition that they're in, that's the condition they're going to be staying in until this arc comes to an end and hopefully reinforcements finds them. But not much of a reward if you ask me, if your reward is going into the deeper pits of hell. But thoughts and feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Be sure to hit that bell if you want to get as many notifications on the channel as possible. Like I mentioned, full live reaction is available on the Patreon. And while you're there, you can also get yourself a video shout out like a few are about to get here. So we got Lori Ranatala, More Rudd, and Dark Coyote. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care and have a good one.